Bushfires Royal Commission as it continues to trace the events that led to Australia's worst peacetime disaster. What's emerged is a convoluted chain of command within the fire agencies and a system that saw warnings to the public slip hopelessly behind the march of the fires. This sitting week has seen some heated exchanges between fire victims and government lawyers on the question of public versus personal responsibility. Royal Commission reporter Jane Cowan.
I went straight inside and said, "Pam, have you looked above us?" And she came out onto the back veranda and looked up and said, "Yes, I think that's the smoke from the Kilmore fires."
Week 3 saw some of the most chilling images yet from inside the fire at Marysville.
We were all sort of biting our nails at that point, thinking, what on earth do we do? Where do we go? What is happening? How bad is this?
When the fire hit, long-time Marysville identity Daryl Hull survived by jumping into a lake and, remarkably, kept filming on his video camera.
The entire sky just seemed to catch fire, and then it absolutely rained embers.
These extraordinary pictures capture the futility and the disbelief as firefighters took refuge alongside townspeople.
And that's all that's left of that beautiful church.
Among those in charge of the fire too, confusion reigned. When the fire at Kilmore started before midday on Black Saturday, firefighters knew it would burn out of control. But warnings to the public apparently fell by the wayside, caught in a web of protocols and delayed by a rigid adherence to the chain of command.
I didn't believe that our communities were being warned whilst we knew the fire was coming into the area.
3 hours before the fire hit Kinglake, staff at the Incident Control Centre at Kangaroo Ground prepared maps predicting the fire would burn through towns like Kinglake and possibly all the way to Warrandyte in Melbourne's outer suburbs. They drafted a warning naming Kinglake.
I wanted the public to be warned. So whether they came from us or from elsewhere, didn't mind, but I wanted the information out there, given that we had it.
But that warning and a series of others were never released to the public because Kangaroo Ground was not technically in charge of the fire.
The fire was being controlled by the Kilmore ICC and it was their responsibility to issue those information messages.
Incident controller Jason Lawrence made sure electricity companies were warned their power lines in Kinglake were at risk, but did not warn the people there.
Was there anything done within the Divisional Command, the Kangaroo Ground ICC, to inform the captains of the brigades mentioned in the threat message that wasn't sent out at 3:30 of the potential of the fire to impact on their areas?
Not that I'm aware of specifically.
These are the incident controllers Kangaroo Ground was deferring to, but in the control centre at Kilmore, neither paid much attention to warning the public.
I was aware that there were some being issued. The frequency and the content I was unaware of.
If you've got a fire out of control, isn't the first thing that you'd want to do to ensure warnings were going out to the communities that were potentially impacted by the fire?
My fundamental role is to ensure that the people are in place and the processes are in place to ensure that that happens. If you're asking me, did I get down into the detail of the timing of those threat messages and the content of those threat messages, the answer to that's no.
Even when an urgent threat message was drawn up at Kilmore just after 4 o'clock, it was apparently lost in the system, never making it onto the CFA website.
I've got no idea. We basically send off, and our expectation is that it is sent to the correct sources and that they would then do their function and put it up on the website.
By 5:45 that night, authorities were still deliberating over who controlled the fire and had responsibility for warnings. Kinglake received no warning of the fire bearing down on it until 5 to 6. In 3 weeks of hearings, the Royal Commission has exposed a system where the failures are so widespread, it's hard to pinpoint exactly where the critical breakdown was. 4 years before Black Saturday, a report for government found significant limitations in Australia's capacity to respond to catastrophic events. But that report was kept secret until 2 weeks ago because the state and federal governments didn't want to panic people.
It could engender fear in the community if they didn't understand the context of the report.
But on Black Saturday, it was those in charge of the firefight who failed to appreciate the context of reports prepared by fire behaviour specialists accurately predicting the fire's path.
It's key to providing advice to the public. If the fire agencies themselves really don't have a clear picture of where the fire is and what it's doing, it's very hard to communicate anything substantial to the public.
173 people lost their lives on Black Saturday. The Commission heard this week 113 of them died inside houses. The persistent tactic of lawyers representing state government agencies, including the Country Fire Authority, has been to hint that the victims themselves were negligent. Victims like Bevan Gobbett, who lost his house but saved his family thanks to this bunker.
So what you're suggesting is I should have actually packed up and left my home the week before?
No, I'm just asking you if you, because of the circumstances that you and your family were in, which to an objective observer may be regarded as high risk, what sort of obligation you felt you had to inform yourself of the risk leading up to and on the 7th of February.
How are you applying that I should inform myself? There's no way you'd live in those areas stressing about fire every day. If you stress about fire every day in those areas, you don't live in those areas.
Warnings are an essential part of the process, but the process starts with point one, that people take ownership for what they see and what they smell and what is happening around them, and that is the most timely information they will ever receive.
But it's an argument that's not necessarily going down so well among the commissioners.
Surely to get information that is drawn from afar through use of modern technology would be a better and more timely warning to people than sniffing the breeze.
A lot of our disastrous events have occurred within a few hours of ignition, and that will happen again. We're still exposed to that risk.
Jane Cowan with that report.